Hello and welcome to another video from the Bartholomew English department. This video is on Lord of the Flies. We are particularly looking at structure here. You'll need this question. It's the structure question based on chapter 1. So let's have a look at the question itself. Think about the whole of the text opposite. It is from chapter 1, where the boys begin to collect at the sound of Ralph's conch shell. How has the writer structured the text to interest you as a reader? And they give you 3 prompts. What the writer focuses your attention upon in the first paragraph. How the writer changes this focus as the extract develops. And then any other structural features that interest you that didn't seem to fit into the first 2 things. So, what you need to do now is press pause and just read through the piece itself. So press pause and read it. Okay. What counts as things to say about structure? Here's a series of questions you might ask of a text. First of all, whose views do we have here? Who's telling the story? What perspective is it from? Is it first person? Is it in the third person? If it's in the third person, so Ralph was doing this thing, Jack was doing this thing, is there a particular character that we seem to favour? Next, what time is it? So the most obvious element of structure is how is time ordered? In other words, what's the sequence of events and why are they told in that particular way? Next thing, where am I? What's the place, the location, the setting? So that includes time as well. And how do you find these things out? Where do you find them out as well in the text? Who is there? Which characters have I met and how are they introduced? Are they introduced in a particular way, in a particular order? Finally, what's it made of? This is perhaps the most sophisticated of the questions. The shapes, styles, patterns you can see in the sentences. So for example, are there questions asked every paragraph? Or are there short sentences at the beginning, longer sentences at the end? Are there verbs to do with actions at the start, verbs to do with thinking and contemplating at the end? So more sophisticated patterns. Can you offer sensitive analysis of the writer's structural decisions, avoiding a focus on the obvious? So don't just summarise the series of events, but say why they happen in that order. Are there any movements? So does it go from big to small? Do we have a description of the location and then do we start to zoom in on characters or behaviours, for example? Does it go from outside a building to inside the building? That kind of thing. Can you offer an overview of the writer's specific intentions and evaluate how the structure satisfies these intentions? So is the overall piece trying to create tension? How does it do that? Is it trying to introduce a contrast between characters? How does it do that? If you can begin with an overview, it'll narrow your answer down and make it more specific. Are there shifts in perspective? First person, second person, third person, maybe changes in tense, that kind of thing. Can you choose details from the text that prove your points about structure and evaluate their intended effect upon a reader? So once in a while you should be using some quotes in there, even if you're not analysing the language and the connotations and that kind of thing. Can you evaluate the likely impact of each section? So if you split up the text into 3 or 4 sections, does each section have a different job? Building tension, leading to a climax, creating curiosity, describing the setting, giving us a sense of a character, that kind of thing. You can clearly identify and appreciate any features which run through the text offering cohesion. Now, cohesion's a key word. It means something which is repeated or referred to more than once to hold the text together. They'd be expecting that for the higher mark answers. For example, you might also have a cumulative effect, which means that something keeps being repeated and it builds up. Cumulative just means there's a build-up of an effect because of that. Again, this is a higher mark thing to do. You can clearly identify and appreciate any contrasts within the text and evaluate why they've been done. You'll notice that in all of these things, being able to say why it's been done is where the marks are. You should have this sheet from your teacher, which goes through the bronze, silver and gold sorts of things you can be looking for structure. You can also ask for this, which takes you through, almost on a route, the sorts of questions you might ask to do with setting, narrator, character, atmosphere, the ordering of events, and then finally anything else. So for those of you who like the idea of doing one thing at a time and working your way around, you can ask for this structure route. So here is the question. This is the mark scheme, which you should also have. You'll notice it goes from simple awareness, some understanding, clear understanding, and then on to detailed and perceptive understanding. So detail means definitely giving some specific quotes in there. Perceptive means talking in detail, evaluating why it's been done in that way and what the effect is likely to be. In class, we have these large laminate mats. They talk about some of the bigger things you might think about, like who is the narrator, how is it ordered, is it in the first or the third person, and take you through to smaller details, like any patterns in the sentences or any repeated words or phrases. On the back of that, you also have the bronze, silver and gold skill levels to aim for. You only have 10 minutes to answer the question. Be specific about how it's structured and the effects. Use technical terms if you can. There's a list of what we might mean by technical. Narrator is a technical term, as is paragraph. If there's any speech in there, using the word dialogue is a technical term, as is repetition. So they don't have to be really difficult terms. And then if you're not sure how to start it, the question asks about how effects are achieved in the first half, so you just go in and answer it directly. Don't bother with long rambling introductions. In the first half, the writer focuses our attention upon whatever it is and then say why. In terms of how to use evidence, the TP approach, technique with evidence, the purpose, explanation, and then if you have time, the extension, just like you use for the language question. That's also on the large mat that you have. You can do a lot worse than use that as a structure. You've only got 10 minutes, so you're only going to maybe do what, 2 or 3 of these TP structures, so make them detailed and make them interesting. So here's a possible answer to the question you were given. Please make sure you've read it or this will make no sense at all. The writer structures the passage into 2 similar sections, each one repeating the pattern of describing something which gradually comes into view. Although it is written in the third person, it is all described from the perspective of Ralph as he tries to focus upon figures coming towards him. This creates interest as it delays information from the reader, creating curiosity. Notice how that last sentence says why something has been done. At the start of the first paragraph, Ralph struggles to see through the heat haze, look, there's a quote there, and looks at whatever comes into visibility. To begin with, his eye was first attracted to a black bat-like creature, creating an initially sinister effect for the reader. The writer then reveals to the reader how this creature is actually just the shadow of boys. As the paragraph develops, the boys are described as chunky and vital, and they come grinning and panting at Ralph like dogs. By the start of the next short paragraphs, the reader realizes that they lead to laughter rather than fear. So again, it's talking about the effects achieved. The arrival of the next group of boys also starts with difficulty at seeing through the diamond haze and, to begin with, they are just a mysterious something dark for the reader. However, once Ralph can see the new creature, details are offered to the reader about their strange eccentric clothing and ordered marching. Because the paragraph has a similar structure to the first one, the difference with the first set of more ragged boys is emphasised. Just as the other boys ended with panting, these new boys are gasping and sweating. However, their leader shouted an order, vaulted onto the platform, and ends the passage with a demanding question, making the reader feel he will not be panting at Ralph like dogs. So it talks about contrasts, repetitions, patterns, and the effect of all of these things. So, hopefully that's helped you understand how you might approach the structure question. Make sure that if you're missing any of these sheets, you ask your teacher and we can let you have them. Hope that was useful.